Welcome back, everybody, to the Roundtable, Season 1, Episode 7. We are working our way through the Calvin athletic year, a unique year in that. And, of course, my co-host is with me again, Coach Ryan Souders from Calvin Men's Soccer. We'll bring Jeff Febus along again, like always, as we continue to think about the world of sports, think about Calvin athletics, and really introduce you to kind of the people and faces that really make Calvin athletics unique and a great place to work and meet some of our student athletes. Big show tonight. We got David Hoger from our men's lacrosse program, and we have a couple of student athletes that we will wait to surprise you with. So that's kind of where we're off the top. Of course, Ryan and I kind of go through 3 different topics each show with some themes that we repeat. We have one of those tonight. This segment is always brought to you by Meyer, a proud sponsor of Calvin Athletics since 2012. They allow us to do a lot of things with their contributions to make the student-athlete experience at Calvin University one of the best. Ryan, how you doing?
Great, man. Roundtable, one of the highlights when we do it. And I feel like finally, tonight we're going to be able to talk about actually some Calvin athletics. We've been able to compete a little bit. I've been missing the student section though. There's a shout out to the student section, been missing them, but it's good to see some competition again. And it's always good to be back at the roundtable.
Yeah. I ran into to a few of our Night Nation folks today who are lamenting the fact that they weren't able to help us get over the hump against Hope, and we'll talk, I'm sure, about that a little bit tonight. But the yellow hat from the men's soccer program, we're missing that in the front row. So that,
yeah, they're dying to be out there. I know that. Man in the yellow hat. I'll have to take that one back to John, and who knows? Curious George may make an appearance at the first live student section whenever that's allowed.
I think if we ever get a student section back, it should be whatever you wear to Midnight Madness. You got to wear that first game back and just go crazy. Then no one will tell you. You all have a mask on, literally a mask on. Sorry about that. That's bad stuff. All right, topic number 1: sports. Question mark sports, exclamation point. I don't know, but I have these in my mind, and I don't know what it is. I'm exhausted because. And I'll start.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted because we test student athletes a lot for COVID. And these are usually the dog days of athletics anyway, right? You're usually through the fall momentum, and you kind of get in. You're not in a conference tournament. You're slugging away. You're playing teams who've scouted you. It's cold. I go to work when it's dark. I come home when it's dark. But today I'm exhausted because we are testing a lot of athletes, and it's great that the college supports it. But tell me, are you exhausted, or tell me about what you think the dog days of sports are?
So I'm going to piggyback on that with a couple of things. It's funny because we've been working in shifts, testing our athletes, and I work a lot. It's hard to explain if you don't really know it, but I've worked a lot with our women's soccer coach, Emily Ottenhoff, and it was funny. You have some freshman athletes. This is their first Calvin experience, and Emily was one of the swab observation specialists, and this student athlete walked away and said, "Well, I'll see you on Wednesday, Emily." And Emily laughed. She looked at me. She goes, "I don't think she knows I'm a coach."
It's a strange year.
Helix did all of our testing in the fall. So you would see Helix people and you're like, oh, these are the people that come in to test us. And It's like, well, we didn't have any fall sporting events. Emily goes, I legitimately think she thinks that I'm just like a testing person.
I know, but you want to think we all wear Calvin gear every day.
I know.
We all have stuff like Calvin soccer, Calvin lacrosse. Like, wouldn't that student athlete think, man, these Helix people, they're really bright. They really are supporting Calvin athletics. No, it's the coaching staff.
No, and it's funny. It's really funny because and with you take it lightly, but Annie Needs, who was here a couple weeks ago, she came walking in the other day. She goes, "Wow, you guys are here a lot."
It's our job. Actually, it's in addition to our job. No, I had a student athlete say to me today, it's like, I was all garbed up with the shield and all that kind of stuff. And he said, Dr. Timmer, you're finally earning the doctor degree. And I'm like, well, thanks, but you actually have to go to school. You can't just put on a mask. It's like,
So,
can I put a policeman outfit on? Am I a policeman? I mean, what?
well, I'll tell you what, in any given day, if that's the case, my daughter is a chef, a doctor, a fire worker. It changes all the time. One last side story. I will save names to protect the innocent, but you come in and you self swab and then you hand it to the swab observation specialist. And this one individual I was working with said of this person who had just swabbed their nose, who will remain nameless, you probably can never figure it out, said, hey, do you want to know what Olympian boogers look like?
Oh, wow.
And that's when you've just
you've reached it.
If you reach it, you're tired of it. You're ready. You're ready for no more testing.
Yeah, I think I have one of the topics I had on here was the greatest generation, and I will say this: I was talking to a few of the people I worked with today. These kids are going through a lot, and I really appreciate every student athlete that's out there. They're starting second semester tomorrow. I think some of them are glad to be back into embodied education. But we're asking them to spend, they got to get over to campus. They got to get about, probably a 45-minute round trip for testing. They're nervous about whether they're going to, be the one that tests positive, and it's not a thing of shame. And then they got to do all the things that the coaches are asking them to do. And, I give them a ton of credit. I'm so proud of them. And if there's anything that's going to get me over the being exhausted and it's our student athletes and it's the people you work with. So,
I'll interject real quick. It's interesting. So, our guys today, we had our first kind of optional lift fitness session, where we had reserved space and, doing all the social distancing, and it's monitored. And, I can't be there for the actual session, but just went down at the beginning to say hi to guys. And it was like a shot in the arm I didn't know I needed. It was just like, we haven't been together in any capacity since Halloween. And it was just this kind of reminder, like, we got great kids. They've, I think, by and large, done a great job. They want to be here. Our coaches want to work with the student athletes. And so, as much as we're tired of testing, I think to be able to allow our athletes to compete, to be able to coach them again, we'll ask Coach Hoger about that later as he's kind of getting some practices again. What's that been like? But it's definitely, it's a balance, right?
Yeah. And just, we usually have a little time off the top, and we don't have to go through all the topics, but there is some sense of normalcy. Like, it's nice to be mad about a loss or excited about a win. There's something out there for all the teams to look at. We're watching the games online. I'm privileged to be there in person, watching our swim team compete. And it's not normal. There's no question it's not normal, but to watch people compete, they love to do it. To see the team get together, I think all those things are pumping a little bit of fuel into me. Now, I will say this: my second one is I'm exhausted because I don't like losing to the school west of us. And we took a couple on the nose. That's all right. Those are in the non-conference part of the season. We will lick our wounds, and we will be back at it. And we're going to have to go on the road in the men's, and we're going to have to protect home court for the women when we see them again here in February, and we will all be excited for that. But really strange, and I'm going to ask Jeff Febus about this when he pops on with us. A Hope Calvin game in an empty arena. We always used to say, you put Hope Calvin in an empty arena, it'll still have the same intensity. We always said that because it sounded right. But I sat courtside. Oh, they were getting after it, and it was great to actually see that. And you've been involved with them, Ryan. I don't care what you say. A rivalry game is a rivalry game. I don't know who your rivalry at Davidson or Wheaton was at when you played, but it's just a little different. So, what do you remember about some rivalry games, both coaching and playing?
Well, I mean, I think rivalry games are always different. And I know this may be a little Calvin hubris, but the Calvin one with that school west of us is even different than what people have been a part of, and you hear about it. And then you come and you hear about it and you experience it. It's usually, if you get that loss and then you really feel it. We don't like them. I don't. Maybe there's people that they're going to say they're going to listen to this podcast and they're not going to like it, or there's Calvin alums who are going to listen and I'm going to get in trouble. But we don't like them. And I was watching the game on my phone, like this. I could tell from there that it was intense. So, I mean,
Yeah.
in one sense, you love rivalry games. You hate them. I think as a coach, you over stress about them. But so great to play in. Do I think that our men and women wish they could have maybe done a couple things different on Saturday? Sure, but I guarantee you they will revel in the opportunity, maybe even more as a result of those results. And there's nothing like it. I've only coached in them. Jim, you've coached and played in them. What's it been like as a coach and a player? And well, I've seen you as a dad in them, and let's just say you're not quiet. So we'll stick to just coach and player.
No, I'll say the last thing. We could do the whole podcast on a rivalry, and in our case, it's with hope. But the funny thing is, as you go from like fourth grade and you're the snot-nosed little kid on the playground that doesn't handle losing very well, and you mature into kind of a college athlete, and rivalry games always put me back to the other one. I don't see anything unbiased. I don't see any consolation in losing. I'm the kid who pouts in the corner after a rivalry game because, it means so much, and it means so much to the community. But that's what makes Calvin and our rival very, very, very unique. And so we love to have kids come and play in that. I don't care what sport. Those are must-see games. Those are all hands-on-deck games for everyone. So,
when you got that sense, hang on, I'll say this: you got that sense from our freshmen. Right. Yeah. They've never played. They're like, whoa, this is different. Right. It's definitely different than just college ball. So, we'll get them back.
Hard. Yeah.
We'll get them back.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So my second topic was gear, swag, and the college student athlete. And I remember interviewing a young candidate for the men's soccer program who said, hey, if I would get the job, can I do stuff with gear? I'm like, sure, whatever. I don't care. And it is, from that time, is exploded. Maybe we were behind at Calvin, but what is that? Tell me, I am old. I am an old guy. Now, I like gear. I'm doing the round Souders. Like, I have Under Armour and Nike on, and you were actually the first person that said, you can't do that. I'm like, oh, okay. But tell me, what is it? What do you think it is?
I just think it's a way that athletes feel athletic, or they feel regal. There's something, it in many ways you give credit to the big three brands, right now, obviously Nike, Adidas, and Under Armour for pumping really ads and sponsors with the athletes that we've always wanted to be, right? If back in the day when I was growing up, if you just drank Gatorade, you could be like Mike. If you write all these different things, right? And before then it was the PF Flyers, the shoe guaranteed to make you run faster and jump higher. I just think today, Oregon football is really the one that showed that was available and accessible to the student athlete. I mean, Phil Knight and Oregon football, Oregon athletics really built successful programs on gear. The swoosh became cool. And in some ways, just like New York fashion, I think is athletic fashion. And so every year guys are, I think soccer is probably some of the worst. So we lead that charge. But I think athletes, they love to be associated with something that they're proud to have worked for. They want to wear the Nighthead. And the fact that it has a swoosh, that makes it pretty cool because I'm that much closer to being, I'm going to say, the GOAT MJ, but you could fill in that with whomever else you want.
Yeah, I put on my academic hat for this one, and I identified three things as a good CRC sermon will always do, right? So I think there's some identification, their personal identification with a program, right? And hey, I'm part of something bigger than myself. The second one I think is fashion, right? I just, you see all kinds of celebrities, everyone, sport wear has become fashion. And then the final thing I have, and this is one that's really interesting to me, is it's culture. You can develop culture, not around your gear. And I know that sounds silly to anybody born after before 1970, but explain that. How does it does the identification and the fashion develop culture?
For sure. Right. I think those two in some ways create three. I think part of what we've tried to do, again, I'll point to Oregon football, who's done it better than anyone, is it's like, hey, you get one of my favorite commercials ever is the Heisman House with who was the quarterback at Oregon that bombed out at Tennessee? Mariota.
Oh, wow. Okay. You didn't even let me get a chance to answer, but yeah, Mariota.
Okay. Where he's playing ping pong. Right. And every time it goes back to him, so they're panning shot to shot, he has on a different Oregon football jersey. Right. Like that's the joke, is that's how much stuff that they got.
Yeah.
And I think that was part of the subculture that Nike athletes had or that Oregon had. And I think similarly, like we want our guys proud that they're part of something bigger than themselves, that they represent a program or a larger, an institution. And so I think that does become part of program subcultures, but also athletic subcultures. Yeah. There's probably, this is maybe the ugly side of it. There's probably some narcissism there, in terms of how I look or we think we're cool. But yeah, I think that if it's kept in check, it can be pretty cool. That's also coming from a guy who loves his gear. So
right. Well, you're hitting all the words, right? There's just going to be a discernment and trying to figure out what that is. But I will invite, when this pandemic is over, people who are Calvin fans have to come to see the building. When we last left the building in March to where it is now, we've branded the building, and we have the pleasure to see that. All right, last topic, and this is going to be a short one. We'll get on to the 5 minutes with Febus. We like this. You were wrong then, or you were wrong now, right?
Story of my life.
Right. We've given examples before. And, I would say the Los Angeles Rams, right? You gave them a huge contract and then you traded them. It would be an example for those who have not joined us.
Ryan, Christian back at Timber Towers is weeping over that one.
I know. Oh. Do you have one that you can think of? If you don't, that's all right. I just want to say, around the world of sports, around your family, around COVID testing, you're wrong there, or you're now. Then, or you're wrong now. What you got? One off the top of your head?
I'm gonna get in trouble now, but the one for me is masks. Like we started, and it was like no masks, and now it's like double mask. And I've got a buddy who, it's great. He posted a picture of himself with 10 masks on. He goes, this thing is never going to get me. And I just like, you were wrong then, or you're wrong now. I don't know. It just, that's mine for right now. I don't know.
It's hard for me because, I know it's going to happen to us. We're going to cancel a game or two or postpone a game. And I always think every time I see a game go on, I'm like, that's right, we're playing. And then every time I see a game postponed, I'm like, that's right, we shouldn't be playing. And so I'm that guy, right? I'm wrong in both ends. I don't know. And I said, I'm going to have a T-shirt that says academic year 2020, 2021. On the front, it's going to just have a person shrugging, and on the back say, I don't know. I don't know. I think Seinfeld will do a whole series on I don't know. So, all right, we're moving on. And again, Ryan, thank you for the conversation. Always a pleasure. We're going to bring in Jeff Febus. And so, all right, it's the time for 5 minutes with Febus, maybe 5 to 10 minutes with Febus, or 5 to 15 minutes with Febus. But our sponsors, like always, in on time, matching your requirements and your needs to our fleet and warehouses, gives you the flexibility you're looking for in your logistics provider. Unmatched service and reliability makes in on time your complete logistics solution. So, those who are familiar with the podcast, we give our SID and longtime Calvin aficionado, Jeff Febus, a task. And if you see him right now, he is wearing his Tom Brady gear. I'm sure Jeff will tell you he has been a long time Tom Brady fan, a New England Patriot fan. And I said to Jeff, Brady's won 6 Super Bowls, right? He's going for his 7th. And I said, take each year that Tom Brady won a Super Bowl and give me a Calvin athletic event that maybe defined that year. So when Brady wins again on Sunday, I know we're looking forward to something really cool in the second half of our thing. So, Jeff, without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you. That is almost rhymes. So that's pretty bad.
Well, thanks, Jim. Yeah, just to kind of give the specs on this. So we're going to have the actual year that the Super Bowl happened in, which is always January or February. But Jim had given me the assignment that, let's say it was 2002 in February when the Super Bowl happened. We're going to count the Kelvin academic year leading into that. So 2002 would be analogous to 2001-02 academic year at Kelvin. So what we're going to do is go through the 6 Super Bowls that Tom Brady's won with the New England Patriots and come up with what we considered the Super Bowl of that particular Kelvin academic year that kind of aligned with that time and go from there. So the first Super Bowl that Tom Brady won with the New England Patriots was back in 2002. That was the 01-02 season. And of course, that was the Patriots defeating the Rams in the Super Bowl 20-17. Adam Vinatieri with the walk-off field goal. And of course, we probably remember the old tuck gate that led to the Patriots going on to the Super Bowl, that game against the Raiders. So Charles Woodson, Tom Brady's former college teammate, likes to remind him of that. And yeah, Tom always seems to have a forgetful memory on what exactly happened there. But 20-17, 2002. And the Kelvin Super Bowl that I came up with for that particular year, really had a lot of fun writing about it last spring, was the Kelvin baseball team winning the 2002 MIAA championship. And it was a regular season championship. Back then, there was no league tournament for baseball. And just the quick specs on that, Kelvin trailed Hope by 2 games going into the final 3 games of the year. The final 3 games of the year all happened to be Kelvin Hope baseball games at Kelvin. Kelvin had to win all 3. Hope needed only 1 of the 3. And Kelvin won all 3 games in come from behind fashion. They won a single game on, I believe it was a Wednesday. It was a weekday. The next day was a pair of 7-inning games, a doubleheader, and Kelvin won all 3. And those were 2 tremendous teams. Hope won 28, 27 games, and Kelvin won 28 games that year. So 2 tremendous teams, and for Kelvin to come from behind to win the league title that year, it really was right down to the wire, just like that Patriots Super Bowl win over the Rams in 2002. So there's the first one. Moving on to Super Bowl 38. It was Patriots 32, the Panthers 29, another Adam Vinatieri field goal at the buzzer. That game was played down in Houston. And that was the 03-04 academic year for Kelvin. And the Super Bowl I picked for that one, the Kelvin men's cross country team capturing its 2nd national championship in program history. That took place in the fall of 2003 down in Hanover, Indiana. I was there. First time that a program had put together 6 All-Americans, and that would be 6 runners inside the top 35 at the time. In fact, Kelvin had 6 runners inside the top 30. So usually if you can have 3 or 4 All-Americans, you're going to win a national title. We had 6, and you only run 7. So 6 of our 7 were All-Americans that day. We had 48 points as a team, which is the 2nd lowest score. And of course, as you may or may not know out there, in cross country, low score wins, just like in golf. It was the 2nd lowest in an NCAA championship meet history, 80 points ahead of Wisconsin Stevens Point. Wanted to throw an honorable mention out to the Kelvin women's track and field team that academic year. Took 2nd place down at the national meet in Millikan University. Following year was 2005. The Patriots won it again. That was Super Bowl 39. Patriots 24, Eagles 24 or 21. Beg your pardon. Oh. That was down in Jacksonville, Florida. And the Kelvin Super Bowl was, again, another national title for men's cross country, a back-to-backer. That took place in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Drove out there myself. Very cold day. A lot of people there rooting on the teams. And that was a little bit more hard fought. Kelvin had a first-place score of 107 points, 30 points ahead of 12-time national champion North Central College out of Naperville, Illinois. Kelvin had 3 All-Americans that day. David Hogsma, I had to look this one up. He ran with stitches in his foot. He had gotten spiked the week before at the regional meet. He had 6 stitches, and he still went on to finish inside the top 30. Jeff Ingbers, the Hudsonville Unity Christian High School athletic director, was an All-American, as was Tim Finnegan. And perhaps the guy that saved the day for Calvin was Andy Yazzie, Rehoboth Christian graduate. And he had bacterial pneumonia for the better part of that week leading into the Nationals. He was part of our top 7, had a run in his mind, and he finished 51st, one of the gutsiest runs I've ever seen, and helped us hold on to win a national championship. Some other great things that happened that year, quick honorable mentions, the men's basketball team going to the Final Four that year when they were picked to finish 3rd in the MIAA. And then the women's track team also finishing 2nd again at the national meet. Moving on, 2015, Super Bowl 49, Patriots 28, Seahawks 24, University of Phoenix Stadium, Glendale, Arizona. People might remember that one for the Malcolm Butler interception at the goal line on Russell Wilson to help seal the deal in the closing seconds. The Super Bowl that I picked for Calvin that year, there was a lot of great things that happened. I picked the Calvin women's basketball team. They won 30 straight games, a school record for victories in the season, won the MIAA regular season and league tournament titles, advanced all the way to the national quarterfinals, where they lost to eventual national runner-up George Fox University. But what an amazing season for that team. Honorable mention to the national semifinalist women's volleyball squad, and also the Jordan Brink men's basketball game. I call it the Jordan Brink game, where the only lead of the game in the MIAA tournament championship against Hope was a shot by Jordan Brink with about 6 seconds left, Calvin winning it 70-69 in the MIAA tournament final. But again, the Super Bowl for Calvin that year goes to the women's basketball team.
How did the men's soccer team do that year?
Well, that was the year 2014-15 where we unfortunately lost that penalty kick shootout to Ohio Wesleyan University.
Oh, boo.
And still got a little bit of a bitter taste in my mouth because of a late penalty kick called with about 10 minutes left in regulation. But
Wasn't a foul.
Well, I'll just keep my mouth shut. So I will say Ohio Wesleyan went on to the Final Four that year, so you could see how pivotal that one was. So, all right. Moving on, 2017, Super Bowl 51, perhaps my favorite Super Bowl ever, partly because everyone was loving the fact that the Patriots were losing 28-3 to the Falcons. I was getting all sorts of stick from my in-laws, friends, people that hate the Patriots and Tom Brady, and of course, Tom Brady and the Patriots came back to win it in overtime, 34-28, and come from behind fashion in Houston, Texas. The Super Bowl that I picked that year, and I might talk about this with our coaching guest just a little bit. The women's volleyball team claiming its 3rd national title that took place during the fall of 2016. They did it with a 3-set sweep over Washington University in Oshkosh. Strong honorable mention to the men's soccer team, which fell in heartbreaking overtime fashion to Tufts in the national final. Still hurts me today because we came oh so close, but a huge overtime win for that men's soccer team at Messiah in the Sweet 16, a place that no Calvin team or perhaps many other teams had ever gone before. So that was tremendous. And then the final Super Bowl that the Patriots won, 2019, Super Bowl 53, Patriots 13, Rams 3. And had to go for the co-Super Bowl championship that year. Men's soccer and women's volleyball co-runs to national title finals. The volleyball team finishing 33-2, did fall to Emory in the final, but had a great 5-set regional final win that we'll all remember over Wittenberg and Vennord Arena. And of course, the men's soccer team going 22-2-0, fell 2-1 to that pesky Tufts University team, but not before they had defeated University of Chicago 4-1 in the the NCAA tournament semifinals. And that was the Chicago team that had handed Calvin its only loss of the season up until that point. So that was quite a fall to have 2 teams in the national championship final there in a matter of about 2 weeks. So yeah, there you have it.
Jeff, again, I'll give you a clap. Excellent. Boys, those more recent ones, I can remember those. The earlier ones, but a credit for Tom Brady for how long he's been around, and again, a credit to our program for having some of those highlights.
Jeff, have you seen that side by side of like the picture of Patrick Mahomes when Tom Brady won his?
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
He's got like his T-ball bat, like this or whatever, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot of those memes going out there with the old goat and the baby goat, and there's a lot of truth in that because Patrick Mahomes is unbelievable.
I really had Mitch Trubisky over Patrick Mahomes. So yeah, actually.
Yeah. Hey, we'll do this in our final thoughts, but we have to do who you got in that game. So Jeff's kind of tipping his hand on who he's rooting for. But all right, we're going to take a break here. We'll be back with our coach interview with David Hoger from our men's lacrosse program.
Well, our Calvin Coach interview, as always, is brought to you by our sponsor, Vredevoog Heating and Cooling. Vredevoog Heating and Cooling has served West Michigan for 54 years. They are a leading heating and cooling contractor and the best choice for your home. They install quality systems and back them up with guarantees to protect your investment. Contact Vredevoog Heating and Cooling today for a free estimate at www.vredevoog.com. Well, joined here by Calvin head men's lacrosse coach Dave Hoger, and as I alluded to in the 5 minutes with Febus section, he's a big Philadelphia Eagle fan, and I do have to give some props, Dave. One of the Super Bowls that Tom Brady did not get was the Super Bowl in 2018 when the Philadelphia Eagles picked up their first Super Bowl victory, defeating the Patriots up there in Minneapolis, Minnesota. What was it like as an Eagle fan, Dave, to watch the Eagles finally lift the Vince Lombardi trophy?
I cried because I simultaneously knew that this was a pivotal moment as an Eagles fan, and also that I may never experience it again. So,
well, I could say the one redeeming moment for me for that one, being a big Michigan fan, was it was kind of Wolverine crime on Wolverine crime with Brandon Graham strip sacking Tom Brady. So a couple of Michigan Wolverines going head to head there, and that was kind of the sealer of the deal, so to speak, clinching that Super Bowl. But yeah, that was a tremendous story, wasn't it? With Nick Foles, the backup quarterback, coming on for the injured Carson Wentz, and they just got hot at the right time, didn't they?
Sure did. I mean, Wentz was having a MVP caliber year and went down, and Foles came in, and I mean, he was the right guy for the moment. So, and I would also just like to point out too that the Patriots may have won that Super Bowl if Tom Brady could catch a football as well.
Sure. Yeah. Well, true enough. Well, he did throw for over 500 yards in that game, but yeah, if he could have caught it and gotten a few receiving yards, maybe that would have helped too. And yeah, I just. The other thing, I guess, that kind of sticks in my mind is, the Eagles and the Patriots since then have both kind of fallen on hard times. Obviously Brady has left the Patriots and, a few other players too, but what's going on with the Eagles right now?
Yeah, I don't know if that's right for this podcast, but kind of a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
Just a comedy of errors that have resulted in head coach getting fired 3 years after winning a Super Bowl, and a bunch of guys not being real happy with the organization.
Well, having lived in Michigan all our lives, many of us here, the fact that you have a Super Bowl as compared to being a Detroit Lions resident, so to speak, it still does make us pretty envious. So we'll leave the Super Bowl and the NFL talk there for right now. And we're going to turn it over right now to Ryan and Jim. They're going to talk a little bit about Calvin men's lacrosse and your career.
Thanks, Jeff.
You're on mute, Jim.
Christian, you set? All right. So Ryan and I are up with Dave right now. All right. Well, thanks, Jeff. And Jeff, I think, keeps track of all of our NFL ties and all our fans. And he's not only the SID for Calvin, but if it's involving my Tigers or my Wolverines, I get updates from Jeff. So I always appreciate that. It keeps me going when those busy days. But more important, Dave, you're with us today on the podcast. It has been an enjoyable run so far for you at Calvin College. Ryan and I are going to pick your brain a little bit on coaching, on moving to Grand Rapids, buying a house or whatever we got going. A lot of those things really came. I'm going to start out, and then Ryan will jump in, I'm sure. Dave, you got to help me remember because I'm getting older. When we interviewed you, how old were you?
Yeah. When I accepted the job, I was 25, just going on about to be 26.
What was
But
I?
it was I mean, it was a mature 25.
Yeah. What was I? What was I thinking? No, it's been a pleasure to see you grow as a coach and grow into the role. And I have to say this. I remember saying to you, I don't know if you remember this. I remember saying to you, you're about to take over the worst Division III men's lacrosse program in the country. And I said that it's somewhat as a joke, but also did realize, hey, you had a lot of work ahead of you, and you've done a great job, right? I mean, we have come a ways, school record wins and all those different things and double figures and a winning season and first MIAA playoff appearance and so just as an AD to a coach, boy, I really appreciate the stability you've brought to the program. What's that been like? And that's the last time I'm going to be nice to you today. And so now we're going to start teaching a little bit. Tell me what's that journey's been like for you from the time you took the job and until where you are now sitting in your house.
I'll be honest, it's been a humbling process. I came in and, this is not tooting my own horn because the guys that I worked under at both Eastern and Frostburg were fantastic coaches and recruiters, and I feel very lucky and blessed to have worked under them. But I worked for 2 top 20 Division III programs, before I got to Calvin. And so me as a 25-year-old dummy came in and thought, well, I mean, come on. I've coached high-level lacrosse, and, I can whip these guys into shape pretty quick. And I'll never forget this. And I don't know if he'll remember this, but it was the first day of fall ball, my first practice ever as the Calvin head coach. And I was talking to Chris Griffin, who all-time leading scorer in our program's history, and great kid, and has become a friend of mine since he graduated. We were doing a drill, first couple drills of practice, and he said, "You think we should talk about the way the ball should rotate around, like on offense?" And that was the first moment where I was like, "What did I get myself into?" And from there though, I mean, it's I don't mean to get sappy, but I just have a lot of respect for the guys that decided to stick around, because the Chris Griffins of the world, the Noah Neds, the Joel DeYoungs, they went through the ringer, and decided that the program was more important to them than the wins and losses at that time. And they were the ones that we built on, and the reason that we've had a little bit of success here in the past couple of years.
Dave, I want to interject a little bit of that sap. You said, you and I are friends, obviously away from Calvin, that, as a 25-year-old dummy, I just want our viewing audience to know that you're still a 30-year-old dummy. So don't give yourself too much credit. And so, coming off of really a 2019 spring where you and the lacrosse program on the whole had come to new heights, right? First conference tourney berth, record number of wins, recruiting kind of getting going, and you head into spring 2020, which was the spring of nothing for when all of sports went silent. Take us through not necessarily what that was like. I'm sure that was tough, but how have you kept your guys engaged? How was your fall? How have things kind of transitioned really over the last year as you're moving towards this spring with your team?
Sure. Yeah. That time obviously was difficult for everybody, right? No sports going on, and the loss of a season and the mourning process that goes along with that. But I think the unique thing about our guys was despite the loss, they were kind of able to find this, kind of inner peace with leaving the past in the past and just focusing on what do we do now, right? How do we move forward? How can we make this thing continue to progress, right? And so, I think we've been having a lot of conversations over the past year, really, of, what does it look like to stay engaged while not overdoing it, right? What does it look like to, be active with our training and with our relationship building and, getting the new freshmen that are coming, that came in this fall engaged with us without being able to physically see one another a lot. And I think through that process, we've really seen our senior class this year, who were my first recruiting class at Calvin, really bud and blossom as leaders. And they've kind of taken ownership of, the program that they started in, and this idea that I totally stole from the New Zealand All Blacks of leaving the jersey in a better place than you found it, right? And so I think that has been our focus, is how do you guys as seniors that came in as freshmen, went 4-13, were a bunch of dumb freshmen, right? And how do you then come into your senior year with COVID, with losing your junior year, with all these regulations and restrictions, and still leave the jersey in a better place than you found it?
Yeah. Hey, I'm gonna jump in there, Dave. Like we said earlier in this show, we have so much respect for what the kids are doing. And boy, we heard your first practice this morning while we were testing inside the TNT, and it was robust. It was loud. It was robust, and it made our work a little bit easier. But Ryan and you both have something in common. Both you were very young head coaches, and so you could both comment on this a little bit. But you both are kind of connected. Or Ryan's connected into the soccer world, like a lot of our coaches are in their particular world. Have you tried to communicate with other coaches that maybe not in the league, but how are they trying to deal with a loss of a season, and what are they doing to keep their team? As our coaches are willing to share some of that stuff, and both Ryan and you can talk about that.
Yeah, I found, I think the sport of lacrosse in general is a pretty small, tight-knit community. So I think there was some of that beforehand, but I think even more so with this time, like over the summer, I would have weekly calls with some of my friends in coaching, and we would just talk about, whatever, right? Strategy, just kind of keeping a consistent line of communication with our athletes and how they were doing that. And, what was effective, what didn't work. And I think those things have been just kind of really refreshing to me as a coach, as a professional coach, that, in a time like this, we have people that are willing to share what's working for them, share what's not working for them. And we're able to kind of get through this together.
Okay, I got one more coaching question. I want you actually both to answer this question. I'm trying to interview Ryan at the same time here. I don't know how that's turned out, but you were both. What were you, Ryan? 26?
27.
27? I don't want this to be an on the field moment, and then I'll let Ryan finish the interview. But tell me the moment where you thought, I can't believe Calvin gave me the keys to the program. What moment did that hit you? Like, they're crazy. I mean, they gave me a credit card. I mean, what were they thinking? Both of you, Ryan first and then Dave, give you Dave a little chance to think about that.
Well, it's funny, Jim, I have to tell you, Calvin did give me a credit card, and it would actually coincided with my first moment, our first road trip.
Yeah.
My credit card limit was $250. So when we got off to pay for the first meal, that was interesting. I thought they gave me a credit card, but they really, really didn't trust me. But it is funny, in that very moment, we were at the bus stop at, the like kind of overhead plaza at South Holland, Illinois. We were driving down this first road weekend. We were going to play Illinois Wesleyan in our first game. I was 27. We had a junior on the team at the time who was 26. And I was only about 5 months older than he was. And he had a lot less hair than I did. So it was touch and go there for a while. But we got off the bus, and you probably looked like a bunch of high school kids. And somebody came up to us and was like, "Who the heck is in charge?" And in that moment, there was like an, oh crap, like I am, if something goes wrong, like it's me. And before then, right, it was like practices and gear and sock stuff. And then this, like, honestly, this responsibility or accountability piece came into play with some dude who was like going in to buy a coffee, it was just like, who's in charge? And there was just this, like, I wonder if the athletic department would confidently answer that, because I'm not right now. I think that was, for me, that was the moment, first road weekend.
Dave, how about you? Can you remember those times?
Yeah. So I actually have two, and they both have to do with my first two spring break trips.
Oh boy.
And so first spring break, we go to Texas, right? And had a great time down there. Went 1-1, right? It was a really good trip, but we went out to Golden Corral for one of our dinners. All right. And a similar situation, right? I know, right? I know.
Yeah.
But we had gotten the bill, and it was well over what we were supposed to. And I went up and I gave them my credit card, and I had gone over. I had maxed out the credit card.
I believe I got a phone call.
I remember going outside of that Golden Corral and calling you and saying, Jim, I don't know what to do. We're stuck in this Golden Corral in God knows where, Texas. I don't have any money. I have maxed out my credit card because I don't.
Pets' heads are falling off.
So that was the first moment where I was like, yeah, I'm definitely getting fired. Second moment was the very next year. We drove out to Philadelphia in a nor'easter and played 3 games. We lost all of them, and we were not good that year. And we lost all our games. I'm sitting in the parking lot ready to leave after our last game on the way back, and there was still some snow on the top of our van. And I go out of the parking lot. We had been heating up the car, right, for 5-10 minutes. And I stop at the stop sign. The snow falls off, and immediately, because of the temperature difference, the windshield cracks the whole way across. So I now have to drive 9 hours back with a cracked windshield. And I again thought, there's no way that I'm not getting fired after this trip. I've lost all 3 games. I've cracked a windshield in a van, and I hate my life.
Well, I tell you, those moments both of you described are what for me makes my job so special, to see coaches step up to those occasions. But those are great stories that will live on. And I just, on a side note, Ryan, there was a big story this morning on ESPN about a team who left a player in the bathroom. I don't know if you saw that. I was on a trip with Coach Souders when we left a player at a rest area on a turnpike, which took us about an hour to go get that person again. So for all you young coaches out there, count the people in the bus.
The worst part of that, as a quick interjection, is I had been the one to count off before we left. And on the turnpike, you got to go past, and we went past, and he was just sitting out on the curb like this, and we had to go 20 miles past anyway. Yeah.
Lenny. Ryan, I'll give you 5 minutes to get after Coach Hoger, and then we'll wrap her up because he's got things to do. He's got to start recruiting yet tonight.
So just a couple questions for you, Coach. Really not as much to do with lacrosse, but first one, you spent most of kind of your upbringing in your life on the East Coast. Big Philadelphia sports fan, as it's already been alluded to. We get it. You won a Super Bowl. But really curious, I think you would say that you've really enjoyed or fallen in love with Grand Rapids, right? A city you may not have been able to find 10 years ago on a map. What are some of your favorite things in Grand Rapids or in West Michigan? Not necessarily how did you come to like it, but just having been here, you'd say, maybe here's some of my favorite restaurants, some things that my wife and I like to do. Just what do you love about West Michigan?
Yeah, so I think to start, I love just the difference of the pace of life here compared to what I'm used to, and I love how different the geography is, like very close by, right? So you go to Grand Rapids, right, it's a small city, but there's a lot there, a lot going on. I love some of the restaurants downtown. And you go, 15, 20 minutes west of Hudsonville, and you're like in the country, right? And so I love that about the area. I love the lake. It's definitely a lot different than going to the boardwalk, on the Atlantic Ocean. But there's a charm to it with those lake towns. And I think at Grand Rapids, it's just been such a fun city. It's a young city. It's growing. There's been already so much that has been ramped up since I've even been here in the last 4.5 years. And I love going to Grand Rapids Griffins hockey games, and I've had a lot of fun.
To interrupt, do you actually watch the games? Because my guys go and all they do is cheer for fights. Are you one of those guys?
I'm not one of those guys, but I usually can enjoy a dollar dog night or two.
Yeah, they love the dollar dog night. It's like, I spent $6. I'm like, on what? And 6 hot dogs. Yeah. So, okay. Next question for you. I'm afraid we're going to get about a half hour here, but I'll ask you. Recently, you and your wife have a dog, and you're one of those dog people. Tell us about your dog. Where'd you get your dog? Your dog's name? What do you do with your dog? Did your dog have a Halloween costume? I mean, just tell us a little about your dog.
Yeah, I am definitely way too into my dog. I will admit that. He's pretty much all I post about on Instagram anymore. And no, he's awesome. His name's Duke. We rescued him actually the day that our season got canceled.
Are you one of those guys that's like, we rescued him, but really he rescued us? Yeah.
Well, Ryan, I would just like to interject here and say we got a season canceled and we're quarantined to our house in my first year of marriage. So I will say the dog kind of rescued us a little bit. And so no, he's awesome. He was real high anxiety when we got him, but he's calmed down quite a bit. And yeah, he's just been a huge blessing. And obviously we were planning on getting a dog after the season. So we probably wouldn't have gotten him had the season gone on as planned. So we consider him our little COVID blessing, if you will.
Oh, geez. So last one here for you. Really simple. The next Philly sports team to lift a championship trophy. It might be 2 years. It might be 20 years. Yeah. Which team right now is on the right path to lift a trophy?
Sixers.
Ooh. Practice.
Rivers.
Practice.
You want to talk about practice?
Talk about practice?
That's a game I love.
Oh, man. Good stuff. Well, Dave, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Dave, so much.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Have a great night.
Thanks. You too.
All right, it's time for our Lake Michigan Credit Union student athlete interview, and this will be a two-part interview with our swimmers, Hannah Chao, the Calvin women's swimming and diving team, and Julian Iturbe on the men's side. And these interviews are brought to you, as always, by Lake Michigan Credit Union. Lake Michigan Credit Union has more ways for your money to earn even more. Choose from CDs, health savings accounts, nationally recognized credit cards, and the checking account Money Magazine called the best checking account in America. Earn more interest, more returns, and more rewards with Lake Michigan Credit Union. Little tongue twister there, but pleased to be joined by Hannah Chao of the Calvin women's swimming and diving team. And Hannah, it's been an interesting last year or so, but you've still been able to find your way into the pool and do well. I guess first of all, it's just got to feel good, I would think, to just be with the team and to swim a little bit.
Oh, for sure. I think after the quarantine hit late last March, and we were preparing to go to nationals and everything, just missing out on being with the whole team made us more thankful to be able to come back and be able to do what we love, which is swimming, and just hanging out with the team in general. It's made us really miss it and appreciate all the time we have together right now.
For sure. Well, you grew up in the Detroit area, Farmington Hills, North Farmington, that type of area. What led you to choose Calvin? How did you find out about Calvin, the swim program, the academics? Tell us about your connection, your path.
Well, I'd always known that I wanted to swim in college. So I was looking for someplace kind of more in Michigan because I'm more of a homebody type of person. And I was looking for a Christian-based community, and Calvin seemed to hit all of those things. So I met up with Dan. I had a lot of talks with him, and it just seemed to be what I needed. And I was really happy that it worked out.
Sure. Just overall, how would you describe your swim career so far? I mean, not necessarily just you individually, but, just the experience with the team. You guys have had some success, obviously, as a team, and individually, you've done some great things. Just, as you're a senior now and you start to maybe reflect a little bit, how would you describe it?
Probably the word that comes to mind is just unbelievable. Not just the large scale accomplishments that we have as a team, but the small scale everyday times when we get to come to practice. We're also grateful to be together, but to be able to push each other and continue to have that supporting, but still like a healthy competitive atmosphere is unbelievable. And then we get to see that pay off at the end of the year or even at our midseason invite. It's just, I wouldn't trade it for the world. All these memories, all these experiences that I have, not even just in the pool, but like in the dining halls or around campus or when we're all studying together, I wouldn't trade that time for anything.
So you've kind of, you've been a multi-event swimmer. Backstroke seems to be the one where you've achieved the most. You've got the school record. You set that a year ago, 56.10. But now you're starting to make your mark in the 200 IM, the freestyle events, that type of thing. How do you diversify as a swimmer? It's I swam back in high school in the Stone Age a long time ago, and I just know it's hard to do them all. How do you kind of diversify into the four different events? Or four different strokes, I guess, and just try to get better at each and every one of them.
Mm-hmm. I think it helped. I grew up doing club swimming as well, so I was pretty much a year-round swimmer coming into Calvin. And I had specialized in backstroke in high school, so that was nothing new kind of coming into Calvin. But my coach always said that he knew I was going to be an IMer because I could swim backstroke and breaststroke like relatively well. But then I told him I wanted to swim sprint free in high school, and he let me. So I was hoping that I could be a sprint freestyler when I came to Calvin. But we have just so many great sprint freestylers that I wasn't really needed there. So I swam the 2 IM because that's where the team needed me, and I'm here to do, honestly, whatever event that they'll need me in. I'm just glad that I have the opportunity on all the freestyle relays to really showcase that I still love to swim sprint free, but I'll do any individual event, any relay event, as long as I can do it for the team and contribute to the whole. Yeah.
So you were named the MIAA Swimmer of the Week for the 6th time in your career, and this past weekend really had a couple of great meets, one against Grand Valley and the other against Alma. Had some great times. You got the top time in the 100 backstroke in the country right now in Division III, and then the top 6 in I think it's the 200 free and the 200 backstroke. First of all, when you swim against a Division II opponent like Grand Valley, I know you had a couple of really close races. You took second by just a eyelash, but when you go against that higher competition, does that kind of fuel you a little bit to try to up your own competitive level at the same time?
Oh yeah, definitely. I would say not even if it's just Division II, but I think racing in general always helps. Like we'll practice doing timed races in practices or anything, but when it comes to the actual meets and having other teams here, it just gives you this whole other extra level and this extra push you need to go faster. So we usually swim Grand Valley every year, but this year we didn't get to swim them until the semester, and we usually kick off our season in the fall with them. But just being able to have another team here, I think really impacted all of our mentalities. And Dan this year has been really good about telling us that we should be making the most of every opportunities. So I think when he said that Grand Valley would be suiting up, they'd be trying to go their fastest. And so why not suit up for us and, give us our own opportunities to try and race against some good competitions, even if we know it's not going to go our way, or even if it's going to be a close race, why not put ourselves in a good position and set us up for some good times going into MIAAs or NCAAs.
So this fall and even going over the Christmas break time, you had a number of practices, probably about 4 to 5 weeks. You had one dual meet. It was against Bethel College of Indiana. And then everything kind of got shut down on campus right before Thanksgiving. So what did you do? Did you go home? How did you train? How did you keep yourself kind of prepared for when things came back into action here in January?
We're very fortunate here at Calvin that they kept the pool open for us. It wasn't as long as it normally is, just 2 hours every day. But for those of us who are still around Grand Rapids, and I decided to stay here after Thanksgiving through Christmas break. But all of us honestly just went in every day at the same time, and we all still practice together. And Dan, he's not allowed to formally give us practices, but he does have a blog. And so we follow his workouts that he posts for us. And it mirrored pretty much what we had been doing all of fall semester. So we were really thankful for that. And it was just routine. And if you look at a lot of swim practices, we could kind of run it independently just because we're given what we should be doing. So we know when we should be leaving, what strokes we should be doing, what distances. So for us to be able to run like swimmer run practices was really helpful in keeping in shape. And the weight room was still open, so we were happy with that. And then when I went home for Christmas break, I tried to just stay in shape the best I could, which meant running or lifting. And I didn't really have a pool back home I could swim at just because of all the COVID regulations. So I tried to do anything I could on land to try and stay in shape. So when I came back in January, I'd be ready to go.
So just on the whole notion of staying organized and all that type of thing, I get to talk to your mother, Spring, every now and then. She's awesome, great photographer. And she was telling me recently that when you're back at home, you kind of run the household. You have everything organized, you put things together, and they just let you kind of do it because it's right in your skill set and you do it well, and they're happy to let you take over. Is that just something that's just kind of in you, that you want to kind of be out in front and have things organized for others?
I think she gave me that compliment because when I was home, like obviously we didn't have school or anything.
Yeah.
So my days were more freeing, whereas my parents and my sister all worked. So it was kind of like, oh, Hannah, you have the free time, so you can do all the chores and do all the shopping, which I don't mind pulling my own weight. I'm like happy to have a home I can go to and feel welcomed at. So I was more than happy to help out and keep my days busy too.
So academically, if I recall, you're a biochemistry or biology major, a Dean's List student, academic honor roll student. Just tell us about what you're focusing on academically and what you like to do after graduation.
So I'm a biology major on a pre-med track, and then I also have a minor in Chinese. For my biology major, I am planning on going to medical school, but I'll be taking a gap year this following school year. So I will be taking the MCAT this spring and then applying to grad school or med schools in the summer, and hopefully being able to get interviews and acceptances in the fall. Yeah. So that's where I'm headed.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, it sounds great. Professor or two that sticks out for you that's been a real impactful person here at Calvin? Anyone come to mind?
I really enjoyed my immunology class last semester with Professor Shen. I just feel like I learned so much, and it was really relevant, especially with all the COVID and virus talks going on. So I really enjoyed it. And she was so good at being engaging with all the students. And I know I really actually enjoyed my physics class last year because I had my friends in it, and Professor Han was just so interactive with us, and he was able to talk with us all the time about his whole life, which I really enjoyed. And then it was pretty nice because he likes to swim for just for fun. So we'd see him around on the pool deck, and he'd always ask us how it's going. Yeah, those are the two that I'd say stick out in my mind right now.
Is there an athlete that you've always kind of admired, whether it's swimming or another sport when you were growing up, an Olympic athlete or maybe a non-Olympic athlete, anything that you'd say, wow, I really like following them? Anyone come to mind?
Olympic athletes, there's so many swimmers I just love following. I'd say swimming wise, I'm a really big fan of Nathan Adrian and Caleb Dressel. And Ryan Murphy, who's probably the world's best backstroker right now. I love following all of them. As well as on the girls' side, I was a huge fan of Missy Franklin growing up, especially because she was a backstroker and she accomplished so much at a young age. And I'd also say Katie Ledecky just because of her greatness and how much she's achieved too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this weekend, you guys get to swim against your rival, Hope College, and one of the last events of the year, sadly, but it was a very exciting event last year, was the MIAA Championships, and it came down to the very last race, the 400 freestyle relay, and in your own pool, and you closed it out by edging Hope in that relay and clinched the championship, very much like what the men did a couple of years prior to that. What's it like when you swim against your rival like that? There's got to be an extra shot of adrenaline.
Wow, I think back to that moment a lot, actually, just because of how much our team really came together. And it wasn't just the girls' team. The support we received from the guys' team, like our guys' team, was just insane. And I've never felt more loved and supported than that moment. And honestly, I remember going into it, all four of us girls on that relay were huddled together, and we knew what we had to do, and nobody was expecting huge time drops. We were just saying, we know what we can do, we know what we're going to do, and we're going to win it. I even remember, I don't know if Dan remembers this, but I told him, I was like, oh, don't worry, Dan, we got you. We have your back here. We're going after it. We're going to win. And I think it was just that whole teamwork that we had been building up all year really showcased itself in that last event.
Sure. Any particular goals that you'd like to accomplish here in the upcoming weeks? I mean, obviously everything is day to day, with the pandemic that we're working through, but, is there anything particular that you're trying to push? Are you trying to get that school record again and, one of your events, that type of thing?
Yeah, I would say our big team goal is athletically would be going for that MIAA championships again. And the atmosphere will definitely be different just because of all the rules that we have to follow, as well as the guys and girls meets being separate this year. And eventually going to NCAAs. We're really hoping to bring a bigger team for that one and be able to go this year. Yeah. Personally, I would say I would love to break a 56 this year. I would love to go 55 in that 100 backstroke, which would re-break my school record. Then I would really love to break the school record in the 200 back and the 200 IM as well. And I think our relays have a large shot, especially our medley relays this year. Have some big things going for us. So I'm excited to see what it'll bring.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, I got to ask you one more thing. I kind of prepped you on it before, so maybe you had a little time to think about it. It doesn't sound like you follow a lot of NFL football out there, but it is the Super Bowl. It's scheduled to happen this Sunday. Will you watch the game? And if so, do you have a prediction between Kansas City and Tampa Bay? Tampa's playing in its own stadium, actually. First time that's ever happened in NFL history that a team has been able to play in its own stadium for the Super Bowl.
I will probably be watching. Usually every year for the swim team, we go and watch on the pool deck on our large scoreboard. So hopefully we get to do that this year. As for rooting, I really don't follow NFL as much because we used to be Detroit Lions fans at my house, and
Tough
that
times for us.
It never usually goes well for us. So other than the Lions, I don't really follow NFL teams. So I do not have a preference on who wins, but I'll be there for the commercials.
There you go. Yeah, it's always a winner. If the game's a dud, the commercials usually come through. So, well, thanks for coming through on this interview here, Hannah. It's great to have you around, and looking forward to watching you swim here in the next few weeks. It's been a great January for you. Congrats on the MIAA Swimmer of the Week honor again, and wish you all the best moving forward.
Thank you so much.
All right. Again, that's Hannah Chao, part of our Lake Michigan Credit Union student athlete interview. And we're joined here on the Lake Michigan Credit Union Part 2 section of our student athlete interview series with Julian Iturbe. And Julian, a senior out of Caracas, Venezuela. And he's made quite a mark with the Calvin men's swimming and diving program over the last, 3.5 years. earning MIAA Most Valuable Swimmer Award honors, All-America honors. But before we get into the swimming side, Julian, just tell us a little bit about how you found out about Calvin. You grew up in Venezuela, and just tell us about that journey, about how you came to the United States and then eventually to Calvin.
Sure thing, Jeffrey. So I did my high school career in my hometown, Caracas, Venezuela, and then since growing up, my family, we always had in mind to come to the United States and pursue a career in a university around United States. So we always had that in mind. That was the goal at the beginning. And then specifically how I found out Calvin, well, I was always involved with swimming, and we used that as a door to find a possible team and a possible financial aid. How I found out Calvin, I was looking around for universities that had specifically chemical engineering and the swimming program as well. And combined, Calvin was the university that fit the description the best. I chose Calvin because the program seemed strong and valuable enough for a future, and I chose the swimming team because Dan was a great support as we find like we needed to determine the final factors into choosing the universities. So yeah, I chose Calvin at the end because it fitted the most to me, and I think together with the chemical engineering and the swimming program, it was the best option for me to go with.
So talking about the swimming part, you've had a lot of success, and perhaps, your biggest events have been the freestyle, although I see you making your mark in the IM and some of the other events here and some of the races. Just how have you progressed as a swimmer? Because your times have gotten faster and faster over the years. It's not like you're plateauing, you keep getting better. So, what has the program been like for you as far as improving as an athlete?
Yeah, when I came here on freshman year, I remember the big thing was lifting. I remember the seniors being so excited about going to lift, and I really didn't believe in that. So as a freshman, I was I don't want to go lift. I don't want to get bulky. I don't want to get heavy type of thing because my events are kind of lengthy, and every pound affects. So I really didn't want to lift. But as I grew up into the program and I saw the benefits of it, together with the swimming side of the things that we do for working out, I think lifting is one of those that has changed in my mind over the last few years. I've got into it. I've tried to get better at it, but not just lifting as let's get as much weight as we can, but as much power as we can. Like, let's try to put some weight on it, but still manage to be powerful and do things with speed instead of making it too heavy that you can barely move the weights. So I think together with the swimming that Dan has guided us through, lifting has been one of those things that has helped me improve the most and keep getting faster.
So your sophomore year, you ended up earning All-America honors at the national meet. What was that like to actually compete at the nationals and to do so well as a sophomore?
Oh, that was quite an achievement for me. I can remember that day like it happened yesterday. Yeah, we worked really hard for that nationals meet that season. We had in mind of the goal was to achieve the All-American title. I got it in the 200 freestyle as a sophomore, and I think it just was dedication, hard work, and just believing in myself and my teammates that helped me get there in that moment, and it yeah, it was quite an achievement for me.
And then last year, I mean, you were on your way to another, you know, great move toward the national meet. Your times were dropping again. You were the league's most valuable swimmer, and then the pandemic hits and everything gets shut down. How did you manage just that disappointment, and then also just kind of staying with it in the months after that? You know, staying in shape and trying to remain focused so that you stay sharp as a swimmer.
Yeah, the disappointment. So that's a really strong story that happened to the national team from the swimming and diving team last year. We were actually going to the meet in less than 2 days when we received the notice that it was canceled. So it was pretty shocking. I remember most people had sad faces or tears. It was very, very destructive and painful to see that our dreams were taken away of us without even us trying. But I think what I did to get back on the game was, personally, I took probably like a month out of the swimming, like competitive swimming. I just had to clear my mind. I pursued some other interests that I had, but I always had the swimming to go back and clear my mind as well. But once the pandemic settled down and some of the pools around Grand Rapids start opening, Dan helped me to find out a place to go and swim at least 4 times a week. So thanks to Dan and his connections, I was able to get back to the pool and training hard. So I don't think it affected me the most, but I for sure had to take a mental break from the disappointment of that year. But we're back in the game and we're doing the best as we can.
Yeah, and speaking of that, you hit some big times in events like the 50 freestyle. You're talking about longer distance races, but a personal best, I think it's 19.75 in the 50 free, the nation's top time in that event. You're recently named the league swimmer of the week for the 7th time in your career. Just talk about mixing up your events a little bit right now. What's been behind that strategy?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I've switched into more sprinty events because the team requires that. For example, the nationals relays events are in the 200 freestyle relay, which is each person swims 4x50s or 4x100s type of thing. So it is required by the team to have fast speeds in those events. So I want to contribute to my teammates to help achieve a victory on a nationals relay event. So therefore, I had in mind to kind of switch back into a more sprinty event in order to help them achieve that. And not only that, but by improving my skills as a sprinter, it also improved my skills as a long distance swimmer. So yeah, I kind of transitioned because the team required me to do so.
So let's talk a little bit about your academics. You mentioned the chemical engineering program that you're in now. What's that been like? What are some of the focuses of just that program that you have going right now? What would you like to do after you graduate with that major once swimming is all said and done? And just what's it been like with your professors? How have they helped you along?
Yeah. When I came as a freshman into Calvin, just the academics and the language barrier was a big hit to me. I found myself struggling with the academics pretty early on, but all my teammates and the coaches the professors helped me gain that confidence back and get into improve my academics. The program is been, I think, great. I love what I am studying. I've never think of studying something else. I just love the engineering, and specifically the chemical engineering. Um, what was the other question, Jeffrey?
Well, just some of the professors. Is there a professor that has really helped